Hello and welcome to my talk, Autoconfiguration of Consul clients. My name is Hans Hasselberg, and as you can see, I'm a beekeeper. Beekeeping is really one of my hobbies that I like the most to some degree. I always one of the reasons I got bees is like, obviously I like bees and I like honey, etc., etc. But I'm also a little bit anxious about bees. Like, it's always weird when they're flying around you, and like similarly with wasps and stuff. So there was also this like strange feeling, and I wanted to change that, or I wanted to challenge myself to like get over that, and which is part of the reason really why I became a beekeeper. And now I have my bees for, I think, 3 years, and they're doing great, and like I'm getting the honey, and it's like I'm always fascinated by how great it is to have your own honey and to harvest your honey, and how bees turn stuff into honey. So that's absolutely fascinating, and I like it a lot. So feel free to ask me any questions. Like, if you want to get into beekeeping, like have questions around beekeeping, feel free to reach out on twitter.com/Hans Hasselberg. I don't know everything, like by far. There are many things to learn, but maybe I can help you. Obviously, similarly with Consul topics, right? Feel free to reach out. I might not be able to answer your question, but I can help you find the right people or the right place to go and ask stuff. And I'm sure we will find a solution for your problem as well. So in my talk, the talk is like split into two halves. So the first half is like I'm building up a case. I'm building up a Consul client configuration that is secure, like in terms of like Consul features, in terms of features Consul provides. Like, what bits should you turn on to have a secure Consul client configuration? And I want to really highlight how hard it is to do that, and what what really how hard it is, and like show the burden kind of thing. And then then I want to show you how you can fix that, and what are ways to mitigate some of that, and what are some ways to make your life easier as an operator. And let me go back a little bit. I forgot the work stuff. So I work at HashiCorp. I started working here 3 years ago. In the beginning, I worked on the Consul core product, and my talk is also related to that. So it's stuff I worked on at Consul directly. But these days I'm working on the Consul cloud platform. And that's also amazing, because like while my talk is focused on the client stuff and more, it's like more content from my previous responsibility, the other half, like managing the service, is something we are now offering to you, and I highly recommend to check that out, because it is another step into forward to like less work, less operational stuff for you, and more freedom to build your own applications, etc. on top of Consul. So I will come back to that and show a little bit, like show one or two screenshots how that looks, but I highly recommend you check that out. So running Consul securely is hard, and I hope it's no like, just because there are so many things to consider, like obviously the environment you are running Consul in, like may it be a kube cluster or virtual machines on Amazon or Azure, and then what about security groups, what about networking, what about VPCs, etc., etc. And so these are all the things you need to consider as an operator, but also all the security related Consul features. And in my mind, there's just a lot to it, and it's very hard to be on top of it all. So, and I hope I can help you with that with my talk. This talk is, as I said, focusing on Consul client configuration related to security, because I think it has an interesting spot right there. That's an interesting piece of configuration right there, because it is in contrast to Consul server configuration, for example. Consul server you almost never change. You only have 3 to 5 Consul servers usually, and this is not a lot of Consul servers. In contrast to your clients, right? You have usually tens or hundreds or even thousands of clients that are running, and you are spinning up new clients, you are deprovisioning clients, and there's lots of churn and lots of change, right? And it's important to build your system in a way that is secure and resilient and not brittle and falls apart easily, because that only creates problems for you. For all the content that I'm going to provide, I highly recommend you check out our learn.hashicorp.com platform. It has all the content I'm covering too. There are interesting guides that walk you through different aspects, and you should definitely check it out if you don't know what I mean when I say certain things. This is one of the screenshots of our cloud offering. This is the stuff that I have been working on. Not the Consul cluster limit, but the primary and secondary cluster. We are in the process of porting federation to our cloud platform, so you can federate clusters across multiple regions, and that's amazing. I think our cloud platform is great, and you should definitely check it out. It will help you with running your Consul servers, because then we have to run it, and we are hand-holding your server clusters and make sure everything is going fine. Let's jump into our topic. Running Consul. This is a Consul client configuration, almost as easy as it could be, right? There's nothing to run without any security. The things you can see over there are just the bare minimum to get the Consul client running. In that state, there's nothing preventing an attacker that's in your network from taking over your Consul cluster, from DDoSing it, from stealing the data, from impersonating servers, anything, right? There are many things. Like at this point, your Consul cluster is totally open, and any attacker, or even like you yourself, right, with good intents but with a typo, could do bad things. So there's nothing preventing anything bad from a cluster. This configuration has an encrypt key, like it has the encrypt stanza and then something. This is running Consul with gossip encryption turned on. So Consul has multiple layers of communication. One, the lowest layer, if I might say so, is our gossip protocol implementation. Gossip protocol is a membership protocol where every Consul agent is participating in. These are Consul clients and Consul servers, and they are all equal, treated equally. And this layer is for communicating and discovering healthy and unhealthy nodes. It is built in a way that is high performant, performs up to thousands of clients, and like I said, it's a special protocol. One of the reasons why it's so performant, it's based on UDP. Problem with UDP is like it's not easy to encrypt, which is why this is a symmetric key, right? In contrast to an asymmetric key that you have when you are using TLS, for example. Unfortunately, TLS is not available on UDP, which is why gossip layer is encrypted via symmetric encryption. So this is a secret you have to put into your Consul cluster, Consul client, in order to be able to join an encrypted Consul cluster. this configuration is like already much bigger. Like it has 5 more lines, and it's running Consul with gossip encryption like before, but now we also have TLS enabled. What TLS does is it's encrypting the other path of communication, the RPC path, and that's always happening when clients are talking to servers. It's always that way. Yeah. Clients are talking to servers for everything basically. The servers are maintaining the database with the key value store, with the service, the registered services, etc., etc. So whenever a client looks up data on the servers, it's using the RPC communication, and RPC communication is in this case TLS encrypted, which is great. And how it's done is we are providing a CA, a client certificate, and a client private key file. So that a client can use the CA file to and the cert file and the key file to communicate securely with the Consul server. Verify server hostname is also a very important option. It makes the client verify if it's actually talking to a authorized server, so to speak. So you should definitely have that as well. At this point, every communication layer is encrypted, so that's great. Gossip encryption and TLS, that's absolutely great to have. Next thing is turning on ACLs. ACL is our access control list implementation, which allows you to restrict access. So for example, you want your agent, the agent you are spinning up and you are registering, you only want your agent to be able to register itself, right? Obviously. You don't want it to be able to register another agent. Even though that doesn't make sense, it should also be forbidden, because in case somebody else gains access to that machine and has this agent token, you don't want that person to do anything else except for the limited scope basically that it should have. ACLs are also useful for many other things. For example, for other operators or other Consul users, you can hand out ACL tokens for them to authenticate with that are limited in scope. So for example, the one person can only see the key value store, the other person can see the services, or and so on and so forth. So ACLs is an important system, and depending on what features you use in Consul, what other features, for example, connect our service mesh, ACLs really become a necessity. Otherwise, like parts of connect don't make sense. For example, our service mesh allows you to define who can talk to whom. And if there are no ACLs, everybody can set up these rules. And there's really no point in having these rules if everybody can set them up. So this is what ACLs are good for. Unfortunately, it requires you to create an agent token. And it also requires you to make the agent token proper with the proper access. Okay, so, but now we went through all of that, right? Great, congratulations. We got that far, and it was not easy. That was a fast run through the different security features in Consul that you can use to secure your cluster. And now you learned about all these things, and while talking about it is easy, enabling security is much harder, right? So the transition is, as you can imagine, if you want it to be seamless, it's hard to transition from no ACL to ACLs. It's also hard to transition from no TLS encryption to TLS encryption. There are ways in Consul to do that, to gradually turn it on, but it requires lots of work. Anyways, you did that, and your Consul cluster is pretty secure. But is it the end? No, it's unfortunately not the end. Because now you need to make sure the gossip key that you are using to provision new clients is stored securely. Like where is that key stored? It's a symmetric key. It's a secret, right? It needs to be stored encrypted. But how is it fetched during the provisioning? Is that secure? Because if it's not secure, if it's just on some public endpoint, then there's really no point in having it at all, honestly. And when you rotate your gossip key, which you obviously do like every once in a while because it's good practice, just in case it leaked, then you want to rotate it to make sure to invalidate the old key. You obviously have automation, you should have automation in place to also update your provisioning infrastructure. And the TLS certificates, the certificate pair you're using for the client, like how do you generate that? How do you access your Consul CA? Where is this stuff stored? How do you securely generate client secrets, the client certificate pair? And how do you send it to the new server? Is all of that secure? Because otherwise there's no point in having it. Unfortunately, right, that's how security works. And because you were like doing all these things properly, you chose a sensible expiry date for your client certificates. That means they're expiring, and that means you need to renew them. Like, how do you do that, right? Did you ever think? I mean, few people ever think about that, but you also might want to rotate your Consul CA. Like, is that even possible? Then let's have a look at the ACL agent token. You want to make sure it has the least amount of privileges, obviously, and the same problems that I highlighted for the gossip key and the TLS stuff applies here as well. Like, how do you generate the key in the first place? Is that secure? Because you need a management key to generate the client key, agent token, sorry, and all of that, like, it's just like, if you think about it, it's almost a never-ending rabbit hole that you are getting into in terms of like what needs to be done, not only to use the features, security features, but also be actually secure. And as you can see, that's hard. And honestly, at my last job before HashiCorp, I was managing a Consul cluster. And I can tell you, I never rotated the gossip key. And I never rotated client certificates. And I didn't enable the ACL system. And that's perfectly fine to some degree. That's perfectly normal. People do that all the time. I just wanted to let you know, I just wanted to share what I learned with you, basically, because I think we should get to a place where we all can do better, like, because we know we can do better, and now I want us to do better. And let me show you how we could improve the situation. So one of the, I mentioned there's a feature that's like not very widely known, I think. I might be wrong, but that's my guess. It's autoconfig. And the documentation says, when starting up, but before joining the cluster, the client agent will make an RPC to the configured server addresses to request configuration settings, such as its agent ACL token, TLS certificates, gossip encryption key, as well as other configuration settings. So that's autoconfig. And doesn't that sound amazing? Like, what if we could just like remove all the stuff that we just talked about, the TLS certificates, the gossip key, the agent token, if we could just remove that from our Consul client configuration, get rid of all the problems we have with it, get rid of all the maintenance burden, etc. Like, that would be amazing, right? But the question is like, how is that still secure, I wonder? So let's look at the configuration, like how how it would look like with autoconfig enabled. So we still have all the regular stuff, and we still have the CA file, which is necessary to verify we are talking to a proper Consul server. But then we only have a little autoconfig stanza, which mentions the server it should go to request the initial payload, and an intro token. And the intro token is like, it's not shown at its full length. This is a JWT token. Yeah, and I stripped almost the entirety of the token just so you can see it on one slide, but there's really not a lot to it. And if you compare that to our old configuration, right, which had the encrypt key, it adds the CA, the certificate file, the key file even of the client, and the agent token. These three secrets are just gone and in a way replaced by the intro token. So instead of taking care of three different things, you are taking care of one different thing. And that's obviously much easier to do. Also, because of the nature of the intro token. The intro token, and this is just one of the ways to set up autoconfig. It's the easiest way, and in my mind, the thing you could do in your infrastructure as well. So in my example, the intro token is a JWT token, and the JWT token is a base 64 encoded signed JSON blob, and it contains different things, almost whatever you want basically. It contains like there's a structure that's already a given, and in that structure you can put in your own data. So for example, my tokens that I'm using for my examples have the node name, and so that when I want to put a client with a node name client 1, I'm generating a JWT token with the subject client 1 and an expiry of 30 minutes, let's say. Then I'm taking that token and handing it over to the provisioning, and the provisioning starts the Consul client. The Consul client sends this token to the Consul server, and the server, on the server side, it does a verification, verifies that the JWT token is properly signed with a public key that it knows. It verifies the claims inside that token, which is the node name in that JWT token matches the node name of the client that wants to register. And if all of that is fine, it will go ahead and send the certificates and the gossip encryption key, etc., to the clients, so that to the clients that requested the stuff, so that it can continue with bootstrapping. This is how it works, and in my mind that's pretty amazing, because you are replacing all these different like ORs and security features with one thing that's pretty easy to do, generating the JWT token. If you have more questions how to do that, or want to see a demo or whatever, reach out to me and I can show you. I don't have time during our presentation, unfortunately. The certificate stuff is all coming from, we didn't build the certificate generation, etc. for autoconfig. It was already there because we already have also code and the infrastructure in place in Consul for our service mesh implementation, which is also using certificates extensively. And so we are just using that for autoconfig as well. Yeah, there we go. So, and then this RPC endpoint, basically first it validates JWT token, and then it just bundles up all the information, like generates certificates, fetches the gossip encrypt key, the latest one, and some other information, and sends that down to the client. And that way we can, like, really quite beautifully provision clients, basically without having to provision any secrets except for this JWT token. On this slide, you can see the server configuration that's required for the client portion. I mean, it's just showing the autoconfig stanza. It is like, if you look at it, it's a little bit, but then again, it's not that much. It has a public key that is used to verify the signature. It has a claim mapping, so you can map the subject of the JWT token to the node in Consul basically, and then it has claim assertions where you can say, okay, I want to check the node name against the node name that wants to register. And as you can see, the assertions are configurable. You could add whatever you want. You can also put in your own stuff. You can check the data center. You can check the weather, basically whatever you want. So this is just to show you what's required on the server. It's not a lot, I think, and totally reasonable to do. Yeah, that was my talk. I hope you took something away. I hope it helps you operate your own cluster and your own clients. Feel free to ask any questions you have. This is me with my son beekeeping. I figured I started with the bees, so I can end with the bees as well. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this talk. I wish you lots of fun in our next sessions. Let me know if you have any questions.